That happened in our back room a few years ago. We went through the soffit, which is screened. And it's a sweat spot. Amy called, my daughter called me about 5 years ago. There's bees coming in this.
Yep.
Oh, no, that's it. Oh,
Oh, we seem to have visually lost Nan. I'm going to call the Franklin Township Historical Architectural Review Board meeting to order on September 5th, 2023 at 7:03 p.m. In attendance are Dan Latimer, Chuck Phillips, Lou Mandich, and Paul Agassi. And also in attendance is Teresa Eller, the applicant for a COA for 1733 New London Road, which is the sole item on our agenda aside from public comment. If there is any public comment, I'd invite anyone who wants to make a comment, speak now. Hearing none, we will proceed to the business at hand, which is the COA application for 1733 New London Road, after I make 2 notes. Okay, you all have the application and the scope of work. And before we there's some information I will have to add to the application from Mark Gordon concerning when it was submitted. The application type is an alteration. We'll add that.
When did you send the applicant? I have 2 pages
That's all?
from today.
No, did you, Nan, did you get the application I sent earlier?
Yeah, I did. It's earlier, Chuck. So he sent one that has like 4 or 5 attachments, which has the application, the scope of work. I could maybe find a date.
Yeah,
August 31st.
I got it, but I don't know.
that sounds like it might be. Do you have attachments on that?
Yep, I've got it. Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
That should have several items. It should have the historic resource survey. It should have the scope of work. It should have the application form itself, and it should also have streetscapes.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So we have photographs. We have the historic resource form. And renderings. Is there anything else I should add to that list? We have specs. We have material samples. Okay, that's included. Never mind. All right. Just to review, I'm going to deal with the building and surroundings description. 1733 New London is a folk Victorian house with the date stone TBF 1896 located on the side gable extension. I would note I'm quoting from the Historic Resource Survey. Located just to the east of the center of the district, the house is situated on the south side of New London Road and is oriented to the north, that is towards New London Road. It is a 2-story building with a 2.5-story addition attached to the rear. It appears that the addition is heavily altered with a possible widening to the east and inclusion of dormers. A single-story addition is also attached to the rear of this addition. The core has a large asphalt shingled and gabled roof. The frame building is clad in vinyl siding and rests on stucco clad foundation. Teresa, do you already have replacement windows in that?
We do have most of the windows have already been replaced with vinyl. There's only a couple left in the back that are actually vinyl. They're just an older style. So those are the only couple.
So you don't have any real historic windows?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. The single-story garage is a non-contributing structure. And these details are further expounded on in the Historic Resource Survey. 1733 New London to the west on the south side of the road is the J.G. West House. It has 4 sections, the main block consisting of a 2-story core and a 2-story addition, a store addition constructed in 1895, and a rear 1-story addition. The main block is composed of 2 2-story 3-bay sections. Overall, it has an end-gabled, asphalt shingled roof with stucco chimney flush with the each end wall. The walls are brick, painted blue. The eastern section has a large gabled dormer centered over the center bay on the north slope of the roof. The federal style element is clad with shipboard siding and contains an arched window under the gable. In 1731 New London to the south on the same side is a 2-story folk Victorian residence with a 2-story rear L addition and a 2-story relatively flat roof addition at the void of the L. The core is a 3-bay symmetrical resource with an end-gabled asphalt shingled roof. Across New London Road from west to east are 1740 New London, a federal-style farmhouse facing onto the intersection of New London and Appleton Roads and consisting of a 2-story 4-bay main block with an east wing. The main block has an end-gabled roof clad with asphalt shingles and featuring a brick chimney near each end of the ridge. Its associated barn, the most prominent outbuilding visible from the road, is located east of the house and consists of a large rectangular core, a bridge on the north elevation with flanking outsheds, and a canopy on the south elevation. The core is a bank building with an end-gabled roof clad with standing seam tin and walls of flush vertical siding. 1734 New London to the east is a small brick building used by the telephone company and a non-contributing property. That is the building and surroundings description. Now to move on to historical significance. The date stone may indicate construction in the late 19th century after Whitmer's and Briot's atlases were published, but it is clear that those atlases cannot be used to identify owners. The house may have been constructed by the Foreman family, who owned a house 2 doors down, which is Historic Resource Survey 121. The property, consisting of a folk Victorian house and garage, is a contributing resource, house only, to the Kemblesville Historic District, but does not have the potential to be separately listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Since the mid-20th century, the house has been owned by James and Mabel Leithran, who moved up from Newark. They lived in Kemblesville in the 1940 census as renters and bought the house from Margaret E. Hill in 1940 census as renters and bought the house from Margaret E. Hill in 1946. In 1981, the house was purchased by Wayne Beardwood and Kim Blush. In 1985 by Jerome Gouge and Lauren Mueller, and in 1987 by Carolyn and Jeffrey Lyons. The present owners acquired the house in 2006. Is that
That's correct.
correct? Okay. And I just want to note that Fran Seipel Barrett did this deed research and has also done similar deed research on properties in the village. Okay, so we're going to move on to site evaluation and recommendations. I'm sure you're all familiar with this house. And I don't believe that any specific site visits are necessary. Center of the Village is well known to all of us. But if anybody did make a specific site prior to this meeting, you can just let me know and I'll add it to the records. Otherwise, I will note this as we generally do. Okay, so as noted before, it's a contributing resource, and for the evaluation of the house, I think that that's covered by the building description. So at this point, I would like to open the floor to questions or discussion concerning the evaluation of the proposed alteration / renovation of the structure that has been submitted by Ms. Eller.
Well, I'd like to say that I looked at that. It looks like she's just replacing exactly what's there with a newer version.
Teresa, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so that's the intent. We're replacing vinyl siding with vinyl siding, asphalt shingles with asphalt shingles. Most of the windows, like I said, are already vinyl, so we're going to be just replacing the last couple, which are vinyl. They're just an older style. They're not very efficient, so we'll be updating them. Around the wood trim around the windows, we're going to be just capping them off because we have had some wood rot over the years. So we'll be capping those off with vinyl, but they do have a little detail at the top that we're trying to mimic with PVC. So we kind of keep that character. And then even in, I guess the front porch, we're replacing the boards. We're going to be doing a composite instead of the teak wood that's there, which is not original. We do have some columns there that are painted wood. We're just going to be replacing those with PVC, but the same spindle kind of look. So you won't really be able to tell from afar. The only addition really in the front that we're adding is just a vinyl railing around the front, which should help. And just for safety, keeping people off of our front porch, hide our Amazon packages, those kind of good things. But we have a similar vinyl railing on the 3rd floor in the back of the house. So that's what we're just trying to mimic what's back there in materials. Also in the back, we're replacing the existing porch that's back there. It's about 5 by 5 or so, but it's we're just replacing the boards just to kind of keep it similar to what's going on up front. It's just kind of a gray composite right now. It just doesn't look very historic either. So we're going to be doing more of a American walnut look. Trying to think of what else. I think that's pretty much it. We're also doing the similar things on the garage, which, as you noted, aren't necessarily historic, but everything will match. It'll have all of the same vinyl siding, the asphalt shingles, and then a couple of new windows.
Paul, the garage was probably not original, right?
The garage is not considered contributing. I'm not sure of the date of its construction.
Okay, so it doesn't matter.
Well, if the garage were to be modified in such a way that it would be detrimental to the historic district, it would be an issue, but I don't see that happening with the plans as presented.
Okay, good. All right.
Chuck, do you have any comments?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So as our architect member, I will take that as a good sign. I think then that if there are no objections, we'll move on to the review of the Secretary of Interior standards. So the review of the Secretary of Interior standards is undertaken in order to determine if the applicant is applying the standards as outlined below that were set forth by the U.S. Secretary of Interior for Historic Resource Rehabilitation. And before we proceed, I think we do need to acknowledge that the house is heavily altered and would not be considered National Register property. The only reason it's class 1 is because it happens to be in the historic district. You know, if you're hoping for National Register,
Nope.
we've already indicated in our resource survey that that's not a happening thing. Okay, I'll begin with item A. A property shall be used for historic purpose or placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building, its site, and environment. I think this is a yes. Does anyone disagree? All right. The historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize the property shall be avoided.
It's already been done, so.
Ye- I think NA. Chuck, what do you think? You're the architect.
NA.
Yeah. Each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. For what it's worth, I would say this is a yes.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Most properties change over time. Those changes that have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. I think this is an NA.
Yeah. Or,
It's been changed, but she's not modifying that. So I think she's maintaining whatever changes have been made.
Okay. All right. So we'll call it a yes.
Yeah.
All right. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved.
Oh, that one's a tough one.
Well, you're the architect,
Yeah, I know.
and you corrected me once already, so I'm not saying a thing.
They're not requesting to change anything that is, well, the wood. The wood around the windows is
It's
not.
being covered. You're not
Yeah.
removing, are you?
We're
Or-
not removing it, we're just covering it, and we're
Yeah.
trying to mimic the same detail with a PVC material at the top, so it'll still have that same characteristics.
Can you read that to me again, Paul?
Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. If it's being covered over, it can be re-exposed.
Yeah, can we say not applicable on this one?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Deteriorated historical features shall be repaired rather than replaced, where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature. The new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual properties, and when possible, materials.
This is the exact same as the last one.
Right. You want to just go with NA?
No, because this one is not really NA. So what happens if one of these is marked? A broad scope question. How many of these need to be? Yes.
I can't hear you. So what, you want to repeat that?
I want to know how many need to be yes.
How many need to be yes?
Yes.
Well, it's desirable that the yeses and the NAs exceed the nos,
Yeah.
but it can also be the judgment that despite that, it's not inappropriate to undertake the work being done.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
this a no?
I think the intention there, I don't know how we don't say that the intention of that paragraph is that should be wood replacing wood.
Right. Okay, so we'll make this a no?
I think we have to.
Okay. That's fine. Chemical or physical treatment such as sandblasting that cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. Surface cleaning of structures, if appropriate, shall be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. I like that wording. Can we say NA with this? Is that okay with you, Chuck?
Oh, no, we can say yes.
Yeah, I
Yes?
think we can say
Yeah, we're,
Shall not be used, yes,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, we can
Right.
say yes.
Okay, all of your work is on the structure, and nothing is, you're not doing anything below ground?
Nothing below ground now.
So archaeological resources by definition shall not be disturbed.
Okay.
So that's a yes. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and made compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features that protect the historic integrity of the property or environment.
Not applicable. Should not put an addition on, right?
Not a new addition, I'd say NA.
New additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and environment would be unimpaired.
It's another NA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either in, yep. Okay, so let me just do a quick tally here. A, C, B, G, H. E, E. I and J. Okay, I'll just go ahead and make a motion then. I, Paul Lagasse, make a motion to recommend that the Board of Supervisors grant a certificate of appropriateness based on the findings that this application is in compliance with sections A, C, D, G, and H of the Secretary of Interior Standards. Sections B, E, I, and J of the standards are not applicable. The proposed work is in keeping with the current appearance of the structure and appropriate to the structure and will have no effect on the historical character of the structure or its environment. The HARB has not recommended any changes. I think that's it. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I'll let Chuck have a second.
Yeah.
Okay, before we proceed any further, I would also just like to quickly note, where did it go? That although he is not here and voting, I received the following email from Mark Gordon. As you know, the township has received a HARB application for 1733 New London Road. I met with the owner, Ms. Eller, to discuss the HARB application, and I have reviewed the proposed scope of work for the renovations. Unfortunately, I have a schedule conflict this evening and cannot attend the HARB meeting. I agree that the proposed scope of work is an alteration and requires a certificate of appropriateness. He's written convenience. Which the HARB needs to review and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. His recommendation is that the HARB support the application and recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the certificate of, he's calling it convenience, as outlined in the HARB application. So I meant to read this earlier, I forgot about it, but I think it's in agreement with our discussion. So all in favor of adopting the motion, that I proposed and was seconded by Mr. Phillips. Please indicate by raising your hand so I can see. Chuck and Nan, are you in favor of this motion? I'm not seeing a hand raised.
Sorry, my hand is raised.
Oh, you know what? There's a video
It's
delay.
a time delay.
Yeah, there's a major time delay.
Right,
Looking
but my
at-
hand's raised.
Okay, thank you. You know what? I'm looking at the Zoom meeting rather than thing. Sorry, my apologies. I know what the problem is.
Man, I don't know what he's talking about. I can see your hand raised. I can see mine.
Oh, well.
I've had a very long week and some extra days. I'm entitled to be a little befuddled, but no, we're watching the Zoom meeting. I didn't minimize it. We're not watching. We're watching the YouTube broadcast of the Zoom meeting. Sorry.
Oh, and that's delayed.
That's delayed by a few seconds. Yeah.
Is that just in case I go on a tirade? You can beat me out.
So you saw my hand?
I'm not sure I know how to do that. Because first off, the computer that I do it on is, 10 feet away. Anyway, Teresa, we'll pass this along to the township and the supervisor should be taking it up at the next meeting.
Great.
Okay, and I wish you luck.
Teresa, are
Yes.
you double check that your vinyl columns are intended to be load bearing? Okay,
Okay.
ask your contractor, make sure those are load bearing columns.
Yeah, I want to say, just thinking back when I was talking with him, I think there's a load bearing post in the middle of the actual vinyl wrap that goes around it. I think
Okay,
that's what he said. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
because those posts are currently load bearing.
yeah, and I've never heard of solid vinyl that is load bearing.
Mhm.
Not that it can't exist, but I just haven't heard of it, so.
Yep, nope, that's a great point. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Teresa. Your house is lovely.
Oh, thank you. It'll be even prettier soon.
Well, and thank you for, it took a little longer for us to get to this point, but it's a very complete application.
Yep,
Yes.
great. Well, thank you so
It
much.
Makes our decision easy. All right, so if there's no public comment or anything else that any of the people in attendance want to say, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:30.
I want to say that's a record.
It is a record,
Yes.
and that included a lot of reading on my part.
All right. Good night.
Good night,
night.
everybody.